0. Okay. Yes. Can you remind me at the end of the class period? Okay. Did a mouse eat it? What's going on there?
Had a very leaky water bottle.
Nice. Okay. This is from John 6, 22 to 32. Somebody needs to read it because some of you have not even read it yet. So it needs to make sense. I'd like to read that for us. Thank you.
The next day, the crowd that remained on the other side of the sea felt that there had been only one boat there, and that Jesus had not entered the boat with his disciples, but that his disciples had gone away alone. Other boats from Tiberias came near the place where they ate and cried out in the Lord and gave thanks. So when the crowd saw that Jesus was not there nor his disciples, they themselves got into the boats and went to Capernaum seeking Jesus. When they found him on the other side of the sea, they said to him, Rabbi, when did you come here? Jesus answered them, Truly, truly, I say to you, you are seeking me, not because you saw signs, but because you ate your fill of loaves. Do not work for the food that perishes, but for the food that is eternal life, which the Son of Man will give to you. For on him God the Father has set his seal. And they said to him, What must we do to be doing the works of God? Jesus answered to them, This is the work of God, that you believe in whom he has sent. So they said to him, Then what sign do you do, that we may see and believe you? What work do you perform? Fathers ate manna in the wilderness, as it is written, He gave them bread for them to eat. Jesus then said to them, Truly, truly, I say to you, it was not Moses who gave you the bread from heaven, but my Father who gives the true bread from heaven.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Brian. So what happened just before this? I think way back to December, right?
Jesus walked on water.
He walked on water. What happened just before that? Yeah. The feeding of the 5,000. So we're going to talk about how, and then he sent the disciples off, and then he walked across the water, and then they went to Capernaum. We're going to talk about not only that, but we're going to talk about the people chased after him, right? And found him in Capernaum and have this exchange with him. Now, this is just the first part of the exchange. There's more. I know I said something in my prayer about, like, frankly, weird. That will be in chapter 17. That'll be the next lesson. But here we have these people who are like wowed with the miracle, and so they want to go see Jesus, and we're going to talk about why did they chase after Jesus? Okay, so question number 1: since the crowds knew Jesus had not gone into the boat, how do you suppose they thought he got to the other side of the lake? Yeah.
I said that they might have thought he walked around.
He might have walked around. Yeah.
He just left on an earlier boat?
Yeah, an earlier or more likely a later boat. Maybe he found another boat when they weren't looking. Certainly they wouldn't have thought how he actually got to the boat, right? They weren't expecting him to walk on the water. What other questions might have been going through their minds about Jesus at this time? Consider what's just happened. Yeah.
And he made this food.
Yeah. What else can he do? What can he make us more food? We don't ever have to go shopping, right? If he can just give us food. Yeah.
Why would anyone reject the opportunity to be king?
Why would anybody reject the opportunity to be king? Very astute question. Like, why did he run away? Why wasn't he willing to become our king? What else? Yeah.
I've got $2 here. You think you can make 12 baskets out of that?
Yeah, or, $1,000. If you can multiply food, can you multiply money? That'd be great. And actually, you're not far off, honestly, because we'll get to that in this lecture in a minute. What does Jesus answer? What does Jesus answer to them in verse 20? What does Jesus answer to them in verse 26? Suggest about what he knew was in their hearts. Yeah. They didn't want Jesus. They wanted what he could do for them. They wanted the food. They wanted the miracles. They wanted the stuff he could provide, not a relationship with him. So he was Santa Claus, basically. Thousands of years before Santa Claus.
Hang out with Santa Claus.
You want to hang out with Santa Claus?
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that.
With some Mario Kart.
But, and maybe another religious, Santa Claus. So, were the people focusing on the food or the power that produced it? The food. They're focusing on the food. They weren't focusing on who Jesus was and why he had done that or anything like that. Next question. What does Jesus teach about our priorities in this passage? What can you learn from the reaction of the people about what our priorities? Yeah.
Well, it kind of shows that like we often focus on what we got and not who gave it to us. We focus on like what we have and not the person who gave us all of these things. Like for like the simplest things that we often take those things for granted. Too. Like they were focusing on Jesus. Oh, they got bread and it was good.
I don't want to cast dispersions on your Christmas traditions, but just tagging on what you just said, I'm going to tell you one of our Christmas traditions. We even did this when my parents were alive, and all three of my sisters and all their children would come for Christmas, and everybody gave a gift to everybody. And my mother's living room was filled with gifts, and we still did it this way. If you do it differently, I'm not knocking that. But we open one gift at a time. And everybody focuses on that one person opening that gift. And that person opens that gift, and that person goes over, whoever gave the gift, gives them a hug, says thank you, and then we move on to the next thing. So we pay attention to what everybody is giving and what everyone is getting, and we recognize, acknowledge, not just the gift, but the gift. Now, Christmas took 2 days. Back in those days, it doesn't take so long anymore. But someday I may have a house full of children and grandchildren, and it'll take longer again. I was very caught off guard the first Christmas I went to Jeff's family's house. They always celebrate on Christmas Eve, and we always celebrate on Christmas Day, so that worked out well. But I mean, it was just this like free-for-all. I mean, it was like, every person for himself, and I'm sitting trying to watch and trying to see what people got, and and it was just like, do this, for me, because that wasn't my thing. So here's how I'm connecting that to this. They just wanted to open up the gifts. They didn't want to take the time to say, thank you, I really wanted this, and can we talk more? Can we have a relationship with each other? That wasn't their interest. Their interest was, what can I get? What can we get? And Jesus is going to say, you need to believe it, right? Not just want what I can give you. What do you think Jesus meant by the seal the Father placed on his Son? Yeah. There's used to be this thing that would crop up in television commercials about the Good Housekeeping seal of approval. And if a product had the Good Housekeeping, which was a magazine at that time, seal of approval, like they would say that it has the Good Housekeeping seal of approval, and that meant like, okay, this is the good stuff, this is the real stuff. So God's seal of approval, and we saw that right in his baptism as well. This is my beloved son. Listen to him. Actually, at the transfiguration that he said that. But so that seal is that thing that marks it as being authentic. This is my son. This is my beloved son. What does Jesus show the crowds in verses 27 through 30 about man's inability to please God? Yeah. It's not about what we do. It's not about what we work for. He says very paradoxically, we'll talk more about this. What does he say the work is? Is believing a work? No, it's not, right?
That means we can't really do anything. We just have to receive
And have
receive
faith.
the person.
Have faith, yeah. Or just by grace you have been saved through faith and that not of yourselves, right? It's the gift of God, not a result of works. That's not much. So, yeah. You're gonna say something else?
Oh, it actually reminds me of Ephesians or Corinthians. There's a passage where Paul writes about how things you can see are temporary because you can't see last forever. And it's kind of the same thing. This is kind of the same thing where it's when we want what we can't see.
It's really the way of putting it. What is the only work, and we just already talked about this, that one can do to please God? To believe in the one that God sent, to have faith, right? To have faith in Christ. Which isn't a work at all. Just consistent with the rest of the New Testament, and actually the Old Testament as well. How is the work of belief different from the works about which the people work? Yeah.
Was it like big seeing
Right. Yeah, so it's not, wash my donkey, bring me food, be my servant, and do these things. It's about the heart. It's about the heart. Everything's about the heart. Somebody read for us, please, verse 30. Is that when they say, what work should we be doing? What it says?
So I said to him, then what sign do you do? And
Oh,
we
yeah.
see and believe you.
That's right. Okay. So what sign are you going to do to prove that you can tell us this? What's ironic about that?
He's already done like a bunch of different.
You're asking for more.
Did you see the loaves? Did you see the fish? See, they don't want to have faith. They want to get stuff. And so when he says you have to have faith, then they're like, okay, well, prove it then, because we're not going to have faith in you unless you prove it.
Oh. Yeah.
And he already had. And he's going to again, but he already had. So what are the people in the crowd forgetting? Yeah.
But Jesus had already done a bunch of signs and he had already proven himself like that he could do miracles, and he had just done the feeding of 5,000 walked across water and like water in the wine, and he had already done a bunch of miracles, and they still wanted more and kept forgetting.
Right. Yeah, talk about short-term memory loss, right? Yesterday. They're forgetting yesterday when he fed 5,000. Okay, excellent job there. Now I am going to switch this because we're going to move right into the teacher lesson. And that should work well there. And we'll read the passage as we go through this. Exactly where I want. So part one of Jesus teaching that he is the bread of life. So here's the passage again. On the next day, the next day after the feeding of the 5,000, the crowd that remained on the other side of the sea saw that there had been only one boat there, and that Jesus had not entered the boat with his disciples, but that his disciples had gone away alone. Other boats from Tiberias came near the place where they had eaten the bread after the Lord had given thanks. So when the crowd saw that Jesus was not there, or his disciples, they themselves got into the boats and went to Capernaum to seek Jesus. By the way, the NIV says that They went to Capernaum in search of Jesus. And that is where I got the name of my study that you sometimes do questions from in search of Jesus. When they found him on the other side of the sea, they said to him, Rabbi, when did you come here? Jesus answered them, truly, truly, I say to you, you are seeking me not because you saw signs, but because you ate your fill of the loaves. Do not work for the food that perishes, but for the food that endures to eternal life, which the Son of Man will give to you. For on him, God the Father, so they think that he's saying, I'm going to give you more food, literal food, and that's not what he's saying. For on him, on the Son, God the Father has set his seal. Then they said to him, what must we be doing to be doing, what must we do to be doing the works of God? Jesus answered them, this is the work of God, that you believe in him whom he has sent. So they said to him, then what sign do you do that we may see and believe you? What work do you perform? Our fathers ate manna in the wilderness, as it is written, he gave them bread to eat, from heaven to eat. Jesus said to them, truly, truly, I say to you, it was not Moses who gave you the bread from heaven, but my Father gives you the true bread from heaven. So we're going to look at 7 things over the course of these chapter 16, chapter 17, these 2 chapters. The setting, the command, the unbelief, that's all we're going to get to in chapter 16. And then chapter 17, we'll talk about the true bread, the living bread, the broken bread, and then what were the results. So let's start with the setting, the place. On the next day, the crowd that remained on the other side of the sea saw that there had only been one boat there, and that Jesus had not entered the boat with his disciples, but that his disciples had gone away alone. Other boats from Tiberias came near the place where they had eaten the bread, and after the Lord had given thanks. So when the crowd saw that Jesus was not there, nor his disciples, they themselves got into the boats and went to Capernaum seeking Jesus. When they found him on the other side of the sea, they said to him, Rabbi, when did you come here? Now, we don't learn we know he's in Capernaum, right? We don't learn where he is exactly in Capernaum until the end of the passage. So somebody look at John 6:59 and tell me where he was in Capernaum. Yeah. He was in the synagogue at Capernaum, and this is where this entire discourse takes place. The place is the synagogue of Capernaum. Jesus said these things in the synagogue as he taught at Capernaum. Now, let's look a little bit about where Capernaum is, and in relation to where the feeding of the 5,000 took. We can't know for sure where the feeding of the 5,000 took place. We know it was on the other side of the sea. We know there was a lot of grass, but there's several places that look like that. So you've seen these pictures before. I think I cut all those out because we don't. Oh, no, I didn't cut. Okay, so this is where Jesus was. We'll talk about this. He wasn't in this structure, but this is the place where he was. He was standing on what was built underneath that. So here is Capernaum, and so it's like in the north part of the Sea of Galilee, and somewhere over on the west side would have been where the feeding of the 5,000 took place. And as I said, we can't know for sure where he was, but they think it was Bethsaida, and I suppose it was the other side, so it could be the east or the west. But we can't know for sure. There's chapels at places where they think it is, but we can't really know for sure. It could have been one of those places. It could have been someplace else. Bethsaida does have a lot of grass. I don't know if they have. That's the wind that would have come through. Okay. So you can't really tell from here, but there's a lot of grass at Bethsaida.
A lot.
Yeah. This is what a synagogue might have looked like in that day when it was all there. This is the actual place where the synagogue was. So you saw all the white rock, right? That is imported rock. There's no white rock around. This is a volcanic area, so there's only the rock that is around Capernaum is black, is very black. It's called black basalt. And if you look underneath the white rock, there is black rock. There is black basalt. That would have been the original synagogue. That would have been where Jesus taught in Capernaum at that particular synagogue. It would have been standing where the white synagogue is, but it would have been this. It wouldn't have been this particular white structure. We already talked about the winds that come up on the Sea of Galilee. So the Jesus leaves by boat from wherever he was, goes to Capernaum. The people don't see him the next day, and so they go on boats themselves, taking the same path probably to find Jesus in Capernaum. They knew Jesus took a boat. They didn't know about the stroll beforehand, but they knew Jesus took a boat. So yeah. Yep, told you that. Yeah, so all of the homes and buildings in Capernaum in Jesus' day were built with that black basalt. So let's talk about now the time of this. It was the day after the feeding of the 5,000, the next day. And they must have been excited. There must have been anticipation. They must have been wondering, what's he going to do next, right? So they didn't know what had happened to him. Where'd he gone? You know, where had he gone? They knew the disciples had left, but they didn't see Jesus leave. And I don't think we can know how he or where he had gone or how he had gotten there. But when the ships from Tiberias came, then they boarded those ships and went back. So now let's talk about the command. Jesus answered them, "Truly, truly, I say to you, you are seeking me not because you saw signs, but because you ate your fill of the loaves. Do not work for the food that perishes, but work for the food that endures to eternal life. The Son of Man will give to you. For on him God the Father has set his seal." Then they said to him, What must we do to be doing the works of God? Jesus answered them, This is the work of God, that you believe in him whom he has sent. So Christ's perception means like he knew about them. He knew what they were thinking. So here again, we see Jesus knowing the thoughts of another human being, something that only God can do. So proof again of his omniscience, proof again that he is God. He knows why they wanted to come see him. He knew exactly why they got boarded those boats to go find him, not to be with him, not to know him, but to get what he could give them. And so he thought that their question really wasn't very important. How did you get here? Doesn't matter. I'm here. That's what matters. And so they followed out of curiosity. They followed because they wanted to see more miracles. They didn't follow because they wanted to have faith in him. They followed selfishly. And that's what Jesus tells them. You're seeking me not because you saw signs, but because you ate your fill of the loaves. because you got what you wanted. And then he gives a command. They say, what do we need to do? Tell us. We'll do what we need to do. And he gives this command. Do not work for the food that perishes, but for the food that endures to eternal life, which the Son of Man will give to you. For on him God the Father has set his seal. Essentially, he's saying if you were as concerned and as energetic about seeking God as you are in gaining more food, more bread, more stuff, I'd give you salvation. You'd know me, and I would save you. But that wasn't what they were worried about. They just cared about the material things, about what Jesus could provide for him. They didn't want him. They wanted what Jesus could provide for him. Maybe another free meal. Who knows? But that's what they wanted. They wanted what was temporal. Do you know this word temporal? It means of this earth. Temporary is a word that is from the same root. They wanted things that don't last. They wanted things that die, that grow moldy and that don't survive. And what Jesus is telling them is make eternal investments. If you're going to invest your life in something, don't invest your life in something that doesn't last. If we were to talk about eternal investments today, Jesus might say, don't invest your life in video games. Don't invest your life in fashion. Don't invest your life in Netflix. Invest your life in things that last. Invest your life in things that are eternal. There are only three things that are eternal: God, His Word, and people. That's it. The only eternal things are God, His Word, and people. And what Jesus is saying is invest your life in a relationship with Him. Invest your life in His Word and knowing it and understanding it and living it. And invest your life in Him or in people. Invest your life in God, in a relationship with God, His Word, and in other people. You will never regret those investments. The investments we regret are the ones that lead nowhere, that lead to nothing. I spent all that time playing a video game or watching a TV show and not investing it in things that matter. So that's what he's telling them. Make eternal investments. But we see here misunderstanding. Again, in John, we see misunderstanding. The Jews think that salvation is by works. What are we supposed to do? What must we do to be doing the works of God? Give us something to do. We want to earn it. The truth is you don't want to earn it. I'll talk about that later. The people heard Jesus' command, but they just heard the first and the last words. And they missed everything in between. They heard what you must do. And that's all they heard. Because verse 20 in verse 28, they asked what they had to do the works of God, and they assumed that they had to work for their salvation. And if they were Jewish particularly, it's a safe assumption, right? There's the law. We're supposed to do the law, but is that what Jesus told us? So the Jews had the law. Keep the law. But Jesus didn't say keep the law. He said have faith. We don't. It's not that we are to work. It's that we're to be. Listen, every single religion in the entire world is about what you need to do to reach God. All of it. Or don't do. Now, the do's and the don'ts may differ a little bit from religion to religion, But that's what they all say. Christianity. Do this, do this, do this, don't do this, and this, and you will reach God. You will make your way to God. I heard a woman years ago who was not a Christian, and part of her sermon, she said, just like all roads lead to Rome, all roads lead to God. That's not what Jesus said. That's not what Jesus said. And so we are saved by grace through faith. One of the reasons I believe in Christianity is it's the only religion in the world that starts with a truth. And it's this. You can't do it. You can't make your own way to God. You can't be perfect. The only way you can make your own way to God is if you're perfect. And you're not perfect. So God did it. The word that encapsulates all the other religions on the planet is do. Do and don't. Here's what you do, here's what you don't. Here's the word that encapsulates Christianity. Done. He has already done everything necessary for our salvation. We just have to believe. We just have to have faith. Now, that faith isn't just up here, but we'll get into that more as we go along. So here's the explanation in verse 29. Jesus answered them, "This is the work of God, that you believe in him whom he has sent." So he gives them a work, and it isn't even a work. It's a matter of the heart. So we'll talk about unbelief tomorrow, and then we'll take the quiz for this chapter tomorrow as well. Yes.